Hi, I'm Michelle Hewitt.
And I'm Amanda Lockitch, and this is Disability with Possibility.
Dancing with the flames, even when I'm down. There's a power purring loud, recharging.
Welcome to our show again this week, and I have to tell you, this is my first solo flight. Unfortunately, Michelle is not able to join me today, and she trusted me to do it alone. And also, we know what a busy gal our friend Amy Amantea is. So when you can actually book her, you book her, and you stick with that. So today we have a delightful conversation with my good friend Amy. She is a comedian. She is a writer. She is an actor. She's an advocate. She has a company that she works with called Vocal Eye. She's got a radio play that you can listen to and download right now. She works at the Arts Club Theatre in Vancouver. The list goes on and on and on. This is one busy, active, delightful lady.
And I dance, I dance, I dance. Dancing with the flames, even when I'm down. There's a
Today, we have the amazing Amy Amantea with us, and you will hear as we move forward that we unfortunately do not have the lovely and charming Michelle Hewitt. We are a disability organization. Some days things are harder than others, and today's a hard day. And so the sidekick, me, has had to step into the lead position here. So everybody buckle up, and we'll see if I can just basically get Amy to talk for the entire time, because that's who we really want to hear from. Amy, thank you so much for being here. I said to Michelle, if she was unable to make a day, couldn't have asked for somebody better for so many reasons. You have been such a great friend to Disability Without Poverty. You have so much disability with possibility. I can't wait to hear it all. And this kind of recording stuff is old hat to you because you are a pro. So I'm just gonna start with our first basic question, which is, if you're comfortable, if you're open to it, could you talk about your experience with disability?
Absolutely. I'm open to just about everything because, well, I have chosen to be, I guess they say chosen to be the teaching moment in my life. So, my disability started with a diagnosis of type 1 diabetes when I was 5 years old. And to be honest with you, Amanda, I never looked at that as a disability ever. My father's a type 1 diabetic. And so growing up, that was not the culture in my household. But once I turned 23, I found myself in a diabetic coma that lasted 8 days, and I was in intensive care. And I literally didn't see it coming, no pun intended. But those 8 days, which I do not remember, my family remembers very significantly. I kind of think about my body like an electrical panel. So if you think about an electrical panel and all the switches are on, during that coma, all my switches went off. And when I woke up, some of those switches came back on. Some of them kind of flickered. Some of them didn't come back on at all. So as a result of that, I have diabetic retinopathy. So I'm legally blind. I have gastroparesis, which is a fun thing to deal with, but it's nerve damage in the stomach, which causes nausea and vomiting. I've been hospitalized 4 times already this year for that. I have neuropathy in my feet, so my brain thinks I'm walking on razor blades, which of course is not true. I'm an ADHDer, an adult diagnosis ADHDer. I'm also a dyslexic. I mean, you name it. I'm a bit of a collector. I mean, I could go on and on. I've got 2 frozen shoulders right now and a liver tumor. So I will just say that my life intersects with the disability experience in a multitude of ways.
And so how have you taken that sort of range of things and turned it into all of the advocacy you do?
Well, I think for me, the first one that I experienced after the coma was the blindness. Actually, that's not true. It was the neuropathy in my feet. So I had a very difficult time walking. And then shortly after that came surgeries that resulted in blindness. So they were not successful surgeries. And so for me, being 24 years old, I just didn't want the world to pass me by. I just thought to myself, I'm too young to retire. I'm too young to, air quotes, give up. What is that all about? I'm not going to do that. My doctor said I had a year to heal from my eye surgery. So I told myself I wasn't going to, air quotes, panic in that year. You know, I kept my car on the driveway. I didn't make any big decisions in that time. And then after that year was up, I realized that my sight hadn't changed, but I just got used to it, I guess. I got used to what I had and how I was using it. And then it was time to start figuring out how to use that level of sight to my advantage, right? Go back to school and learn how to use a computer and all of those things. And while I was doing that, I was thinking about employment and thinking about what happens when you go hand in a resume and you have this gap of time.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, well, it's really hard to explain all the things maybe that I just explained to you, to an employer, and maybe it's none of their business. And, maybe they pity me when when I say all of that stuff. So maybe I should get involved in some organizations. And that's what I did. I started to get involved in disability organizations and accessibility organizations. First one for me was Access for Sight Impaired Consumers, and then was the 3 municipalities where I live on the North Shore. So the Advisory Committee on Disability Issues, which I spent 12 years chairing that committee and working with the municipalities, mayor and council on infrastructure. And then, Amanda, I found myself on, I think at one point I was on 12 boards at the most, including committees, but 12 boards and committees at the most at the same time. But I treated them like a full-time job, right? And I wanted to network and I wanted to meet people and I wanted to show people how capable I was and learn about the community and connect with the community. So yeah, that's kind of how I got involved in those things.
That's really interesting. So as hard as it was, that year was your year of, air quotes, non-panic was almost a gift in terms of giving you that time to really say, if this is the start of my new life, what does my new life look like? And
It's very true. I actually often refer to my disability status as a gift in general. It's changed my perspective on a lot of things, but in terms of having family support to say to me, you don't have to rush back to work. You don't have to rush back to anything. Take the time that you need to figure some stuff out. That is a privilege that not everybody has, right? There are some people that experience disability and they have to go back to work tomorrow and figure stuff out.
Right.
So I didn't have to do anything quickly. And that gave me room to figure out who this person was. Not a new person, but just how I was going to navigate in this new body with these different situations. And that is a real gift, to be able to have the time to explore and investigate what that looks like, what that feels like.
Well, and turning that gift into something that then is of service to other people who, like you said, maybe are not in a position where they have that support family. Maybe they're also carers of other people. There's many folds to that, right? So to turn that into such fierce advocacy to hopefully help make other people's lives a little smoother, a little easier, a little transitions a little simpler. So when we get on to sort of disability with possibility, your list of creative achievements, things you do, I was sort of, running through the list this morning and I was like, well, she's a great actor, comedian. She runs her own podcast on Access Radio. You're a photographer. There's so many things that I'm probably not even mentioning. Do you want to go through the range of things? And you're like, how long do you have?
Yeah.
And particularly, Michelle said she'd be very upset if I didn't mention vocal eye, which is something that I have wanted to volunteer and work with for so long and just haven't had capacity. So I would love to hear about all of the above.
Awesome. Okay, well, maybe we start with Vocali then, because I was a founding board member of Vocali back in 2009, 2010, around that time. And Vocali, for folks who may not know, is an organization, not-for-profit organization, that does live audio description for live arts and cultural events for people who are blind and partially sighted like myself. And the first performance that was ever described was The Miracle Worker. Go figure. But that was, that was the thing. So blind people would come to the theater. They'd get a little receiver, which is about the size of a deck of cards, and a single earpiece. And we'd sit in a theater, live theater, and we would listen to the describer talk about costumes, sets, all of those things before the show starts. And then as the show progresses, we hear the describer talk about the action, right? So if a character says, here, take this, the describer says, passes the umbrella, right? So, because I don't know what this is, or, a character might say, it's over there. And it's like, where did they point to, right? Because before that, with sight loss, my experience in the theater was a 2-hour expensive nap because I just couldn't follow the plot lines, right? If you fast forward now 10 plus years, we're in our 15th season now with Vocali. I've been a staff member, so I'm now the associate director of Vocali, working alongside the founder and executive director, Steph Kirkland. So that's one of my many core things that I do. I also work for the Arts Club here in Vancouver as their accessibility coordinator. So the Arts Club is the largest theater company in Western Canada. I work for Accessible Media Inc. I do a morning TV show, the Now with Dave Brown show. So I co-host that show every morning. And I'm also a contributor on a show called AMI Today. So I do those two things. And I'm an artist, as you mentioned. So I have my own solo show that's touring called Through My Lens, which is my intersection of photography and blindness, where I ask people in the audience to describe my photos to me that I've taken, but I've never really seen, because my process of photography is finding the light. So I just take photos of patches of light, and whatever's behind them is behind them. I'm not looking for a subject or an object. And then, of course, the conversation often goes to not about what's in the photo, but about what we don't see in the photo, right? Like, what are you hearing? What are you smelling? What does this remind you of? Do you have a memory from childhood that's, similar to a place like this? And we go down these really interesting places. And then I work with a lot of other artists on making their projects accessible. And I like that. I mean, I could spend 2 hours talking about it. So I think maybe I'll leave that there because I don't want to monopolize all your time. But I certainly have my fingers in lots of pies, but they all taste really good.
You are my monopoly of time. This is the Amy show. So don't you worry about that. Through My Lens.
Yep.
Did I get that right? Okay. I'm curious. So that is obviously a one-on-one show. How long do you sort of spend with each audience member? How does that work?
Well, the show's taken a couple of different transitions since we started it just the second year of the pandemic, really. So it was when we took it to the Folda Festival in Kingston. That's the Festival of Live Digital Art. I did a one-on-one with every audience member, and I spent an hour with every audience member. Wow. So it was a one-on-one. They came in, they did a one-on-one experience, and then they left with a parting gift. The parting gift is a photograph of them. So I'm also taking portraits of these folks while they're talking about themselves and memories, and I can't see what's on their faces, but I'm listening for moments. When somebody laughs or somebody's thinking, you can hear that in their body language and their voice, and those are the shots that I take. So they don't come out looking like headshots or anything. They're moments captured in a moment of time, and at the end of the show, I gift them that photograph, but it's obscured a little bit like how I might see their face. So they kind of get a bit of an artistic glimpse of what it might be to look through my lens. So of course, but now the show is small audiences. So we do audience sizes of anywhere from 12 to 60. And I play a little game at the beginning with them all. It's kind of like a whittle down game where I ask people questions about them, the audience. I ask them questions about themselves. And if they resonate with them, they remain in the game. And if they don't resonate, they step back. So I might say, are you the type of person who thinks about the big picture, or do you focus on the details? Right? So if you're a big picture person, stay standing. If you're a details person, sit down. And we whittle it down to, the last person standing, and that person comes up and does the experience in front of the audience. And really the audience watches them. And every once in a while, I turn to the audience and I say, well, what do you see in here? What do you know? All that kind of stuff. So it ends up being a conversation. But, it's really about a little bit about edutainment. I'm not preaching anything. I'm not lecturing anybody. But they're going to learn through osmosis. I serve a cup of tea with a liquid leveler. I don't talk about it. I just do it, right? So they learn a little bit through osmosis. They learn a little bit through our storytelling and our sharing. And I hope that they leave having a conversation at their dinner tables.
Right. Yeah, that they take it home with them and say, you should have, I wish you were at the show I saw today.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the Canada Disability Benefit. I know we have talked on your show a few times about that, and I just wanted to see if you wanted to give us not only your take, but maybe some of the pulse that you're getting from all the people that you interact with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that it's probably similar to what you all are hearing. I think there's some excitement that the law has been passed. That's a great step forward. A disappointment in the amount of money that was allocated, the up to $200 a month, which would be $2,400 a year, which doesn't even bring folks close to the poverty line. But the no clawbacks here in BC, which I believe I just read, that is a
Minister
great...
Malcolmson just announced. And so just to intercept there, we are now the 5th official province or territory that has said no clawbacks out loudly, proudly. Yeah. Absolutely
necessary. So that's really exciting. And I think part of what I'm worried about is if an election triggers earlier than the fall. There's some humming in political circles about our federal election triggering early in 2025. That it may derail some of this work. Like I know that it's in law, but that it may derail the process of setting up deeper regulations, and that could also affect the the Accessible Canada Act and other things as well. So
right,
I'm trying to remain as optimistic as possible, because I feel like if there's a lot of people that put a lot of hard work into this, you all folks included. Disability Without Poverty, I think, was pivotal, if not, pivotal. I think you all led this movement. So just because there's been so much hard work in this, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
I want to see where we can build from here.
Yeah, I early on when the 2024 budget came out, and then with the regulations, the sort of one of the, other than our line of too little for too few, the other thing that I read that was offered that glimmer of hope was the door is open. It's open a tiny little crack, but it's open enough that if there's enough of us behind it, hopefully we can shove that open. And get more people through the door. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know that a new government would want to throw the baby with the bathwater. I think, I think when we, did that Angus Reid poll, like it was 98% of Canadians wanted a strong Canada Disability Benefit. I think probably that 98% of Canadians is saying, where was the strong part of that? But yeah, certainly it is a start. It's a very, it is a start. It's a start.
Yeah. We're just on the first rung of the ladder.
Exactly. But the ladder has a frame and has a rung, and more that we can actually step up. It doesn't just exist in our heads anymore.
That's right.
Which is a great thing. Anything else you'd like to comment on that before we move back to how great you are?
Well, I guess I think I just want to put out a general thank you for the folks who did this work. As much as I get involved in doing things, I only have so many spoons too. And I think what's been really great, what I've been noticing, and I'd love to notice more for folks who are listening or tuning in, is how many more younger people are coming into the game of advocacy and having their voices be heard. And this is super important because, I mean, I'm only 42 years old, but I'm already tired. Like, I've been doing this work for 15 years and I'm tired. And I will continue to do this work as long as I can do this work, right? The advocacy and all of that stuff, because people did it before and I'm benefiting from that work. And so I want people who come up after me in the disability community to benefit from the work. But we also need people with disabilities who are coming up now to continue that work. And, that takes mentorship and that takes building connections and time. But I'm starting to see that there are some younger folks who are like, wait a second, this isn't right. Where do I vote? Or where do I speak? Or who do I write a letter to? Or how do I get involved? And that feels really refreshing to me. So I hope that we continue on that kind of momentum.
Yeah, I agree. And to add to that kind of momentum, I love that it's, it's cross disability. It's every disability. And that I'm feeling that energy too. And we're really trying to start tapping into that younger person, especially those years of transition from moving out of youth care into, adulting, when people all of a sudden realize that any support that they did have is now cut off. If we can have something that is robust and sustainable for people as they move into that, I think that that's a very terrifying time for a lot of people. As I've said before, my son is 7. He's going to be 17 in the blink of an eye. And I don't know how to stop that or slow it down. I haven't figured that out yet. And I think that there's still so much work for all of us to do to make sure that there is something that actually works for people who need it.
Yep, absolutely.
So I failed to mention in your long list of things that you do, you're also a writer. Do you want to talk a little bit about? Oh, yeah. Are you?
Yeah, I guess I'm a recent writer. Well, so the thing is that I've always written sort of skits and stuff, and I've always been kind of successful at writing poetry and comedic skits and that kind of thing. But recently, I suppose it was a 4-year journey, but recently, Rena Cohen was the former artistic director of Real Wheels Theater, which I am currently the board president of. We wrote a radio play. We wrote a radio play called Disability Tour Bus. And it was my first attempt at writing anything that was sort of feature length. It's just shy of an hour. I really wanted to write something that had disability content in it, that didn't sort of make us, poor me, I have a disability, or, the villain of anything. And I had to, get the phoenix out of the ashes because, so-and-so went blind and now they're so upset they're going to take it out on the world. All of those tropes that we're so used to. But everyday people living everyday lives, experiencing barriers that are not just part of disability, but are part of everyday lives, right? What is it like to get a job? That's an everyday barrier, not just a disability barrier, right? And it really, the impetus of it was Robson Square here in Vancouver, and how much of a jewel in the crown it is of Vancouver and how inaccessible it is. And building kind of a story around some of the inaccessibility in our city. And Vancouver's great. There's a lot of really great things that are accessible. There's no such thing as a perfect city, but through the lens of our lead, Shiloh, in this play, Shiloh's a wheelchair user. She takes us on a actual tour bus with the old guard who knows everything, and teaches him a few things, and he teaches her a few things, and there may be a love story that unfolds along the way. I play the character Tess, who's a blind character, and she derails things a little bit. So it was fun.
That sounds amazing. And what's up next? I mean, again, we still have ample time for you to go through all of the what's next for yous, because I'm sure your list is very long. You are an high in demand person.
Yeah, I got lots of exciting things that I'm working on with exciting people. I'm working on a show with a group of folks from Pandemic Theater and Conspiracy Theater, which will be in the Push Festival, 2025 Push Festival, which will be 2025 January, February-ish, called Swim. And it will involve binaural sound, so sound that makes you feel like you're in the room with people walking around you, and a vibrotactile vest. So if you are somebody who's blind or low vision, that's going to be a really interesting experience. It'll be an interesting experience for lots of folks. We recognize, like, you know, if you're part of the deaf community, that binaural sound's not going to make any difference for you. But this is their project, not my project. And it's mostly done in the dark. So anybody who experiences this is going to experience the sound and the vibrotactile kind of as the feature of kind of the immersive experience that they're trying to create. And it's really an impactful piece. And I'm working on some circus stuff with some friends, in which I also have a drag persona, which is a first for me. Kind of excited about that. So my drag name is Retinopathy. Kind of fun. Yeah, I mean, gosh, Amanda, there's a screenplay that I'm going to be working on with a chap who has a blind character, and he's asked me to help consult on writing authentic blind character. So we haven't quite started that project, but it's coming. Working with some museums, one on Bowen Island and the Museum of Vancouver, with creating more accessible described tours for folks who are blind and partially sighted. I mean, like the list is endless. Really, the list is endless. Yeah,
and I think so much of it speaks just to your amazing spirit and just your general loveliness. Like, I think the first time we kind of came across each other was 2020 for that online concert. And from the moment, I mean, first of all, from the moment I got the video of your sketch, I was like, who is this woman? How do I become her friend? But yeah, just that, what can I do? What can I do? How can I do it? Who can I do it with? And I think that that's why so many people are drawn to your creative energy, your intelligence, your general loveliness.
Thank you. That's really sweet of you to say.
Well, we always, every time we either your name pops up or you invite us to come onto your show, I mean, we all do a little happy dance.
I like that.
Yeah, I do a little happy dance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess one of the questions that we've been asking recently, like if you could snap your fingers and change one thing related to accessibility in Canada right now, what would that be?
Oh, ouch. That's a big one. I was actually asked this morning on AMI about, this is a tangent, but I'll indulge me for a moment.
Go tangent.
I was asked about the election that's coming up, hopefully in the fall, and what I thought that the priority should be for the government. So economics, healthcare, foreign interference, or other. So those are my choices. And I said the same thing, which is, yikes, that's a big question. And I said, I get this asked in disability all the time, which is, you know, if you had to choose which disability, you know, or access features should be included, you know, prioritize your list. You know, should we have accessible pedestrian signals? Should we have ramps? Should we have, you know what I mean? And it's like, you're just throwing one group of folks under the bus to, you know, for another group of folks. And that just doesn't seem fair to me, right? To prioritize my needs over somebody else's needs. I think for me, one of the biggest things that we need to work on is not necessarily a physical infrastructure thing, but really is that attitudinal barrier. Mm-hmm. I think that for me, that feels like the hardest part. I think if you could change the minds of every person on the planet, let's start with every Canadian. I know, 98% wants a disability benefit. But if we could get folks to understand the value of access, the value of universal design, the value of community in a real, genuine way, and understand what the barriers are that the disability community is facing in terms of, being on the poverty line or below the poverty line, and all of the things we talk about all of the time, that those folks would be like, "What, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This is an injustice. How is this happening in a developed country?" Right? And I think if you could change the attitudinal barrier, all of the other stuff would start to click into place rather quickly.
Yeah. We talk a lot about that because I think so much of the attitudinal barrier comes from myths that people believe, such as Canada's such a wealthy country. It's, it's such a developed country. Of course, people with disabilities are taken care of. Of course they are, and taken care of to an appropriate level, right? So I mean, like you said, that is a big, broad, tough thing to get across, because again, you don't want to come across as, sort of disability porn, which we talk about in terms of like, oh my goodness, you have low vision and yet you still leave your house. How amazing, right? Like, you're so brave. Or on the other side of that, like, all those kind of pity things and like you just said with your show, like, just everyday people living everyday lives, and this happens to be one of the other things that is going on in their lives, right? Or this is part of what their life entails. So how do we just normalize that? 27% of the population has a disability. How do we just normalize that? That's a quarter of the population. That's a pretty big number.
That's a big number.
A big number. So other than, I mean, again, that's one of the reasons I love how much theater and film and all of that kind of art stuff you do, because the way to get to the average Canadian often to their hearts and minds is through art, through creativity. People who sort of may think nothing of spending $100 on a pair of shoes or a dinner or whatever, to really have them understand what disability poverty looks like. So what other things do you think we could be doing better, sort of as an organization, as a group of people all advocating to get that across to the average Canadian?
Well, I guess I can tell you some things that I'm doing, because I think that question is something that maybe everybody needs to ask themselves, because, everybody's maybe thinking about capacity and how many spoons they might have, and where they are and what networks they have to work with. And so for me, working in the arts, I think a lot about representation, and what that looks like to have authentic representation, and how we can bring that to stages, to screens, to any form of art that we can show to the world. That's not in a disparaging, poor me kind of way. And that's a slog in and of itself. And I don't, we're making baby steps. We're not perfect, but we're making baby steps. We're moving the needle, I hope, in the right direction. So, as an example, we had the Apple TV series See out, and love it or hate it, they were casting blind folks, but the lead characters were not blind folks, right? I was privileged enough to be cast in a Hallmark movie last summer called Guiding Emily, and the lead character was not a blind person, but they hired other blind folks to be in other principal roles, which is great. I had a principal role, which is not a background role. They also had folks in background roles, but like a principal role is a mini role. It's one of the largest roles you can get before being a guest or a primary lead character. So that's pretty good. And so that felt really nice to be able to see and to be on set and to have folks, folks on set had been taught how to support my access needs. They'd been taught sighted guide. They had been taught, if they were going to bring me a plate of food, the way to tell me what was on the plate and all of those things. And I didn't have to ask for a specific access need. And I've almost never been in environments where that has happened. And for a moment, I was living in a life that was just typical, right? It wasn't about, because every day something in my life is about disability. I always have to advocate for something or ask something or clarify something or specify something. And in this case, I did not have to do any of that, which was a real nice thing to experience in a moment. So authentic representation matters. I was able to have a really nice chat with the lead actress, who was Sarah Drew. Some folks may remember her from Grey's Anatomy, about blindness and low vision. And she was so interested in listening to what I had to say. And one person at a time, 8.5 billion or whatever we are now, right? One person at a time, I think we start to change perspectives of folks. That's in how you meet folks, how you treat people, who's in your network, what kind of platform you have. And so, I do that work through the arts, my art in particular, but through people that I work with in the arts. I teach a lot of workshops on disability justice and how best to support community, and on things like disability porn and all of those kind of constructs, so that there's an understanding of maybe a little bit of what my life has been like before I even come into the theater, right? To support somebody, you kind of have to know what it's, what they may have experienced in a day before they even walk into your space. And so, whatever a person can do to help grow that knowledge base, that understanding, I think is a step in the right direction. Yeah. We're all working, we're all chipping away at that.
Yeah. It's a big chip to chip at. And I just want to qualify that, for those that don't know, disability porn has nothing to do with pornography, just to make sure that is very, very clear.
Although, what's funny, when I do my teachings and I talk about that, I always say, like, I could talk about porn all day long. Like, I throw the joke in there and people are like, what are we talking about? And I'm like, okay, let me clarify what this is for you. Yeah. But it always gets a nice laugh.
I bet it always gets probably piques some interest.
Yes,
I'm sure.
It does indeed.
Yeah. Well, Amy, I just want to again extend my heartfelt gratitude for having you here, for sharing with us. We love talking to you.
Oh, thank you.
And I know that it will continue more and more and more.
Yep, I'm not going anywhere. You all are not going anywhere. So we will continue the conversation.
We will continue the conversation. Beautiful. ... Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
I'm back for the outro. So, as we all know, those of us who are disabled, we can't predict what our bodies are going to throw at us. And unfortunately, mine threw up a bit of an MS flare. I have multiple sclerosis. At the time that we had booked to talk with the very busy Amy, and I'm very sad to have missed the conversation because Amanda and I know her so well, and she has been so gracious at inviting us to join us around her virtual kitchen table. So Amanda, what did you two get up to without me?
It was great, Michelle. We are sorry that you weren't there as well. We have planned to do another conversation when you are available because, we have great synergy when we're all talking together. But she talked about Vocal Eye, which is a organization that she's incredibly involved with and passionate about. She talked about her work with the Arts Club Theatre here in Vancouver, her new radio play that is out and available, and all the many, many things that she does. It was lovely.
So tell us, Amanda, what do we have coming up next time?
Next time, we are honored to speak with Sandra Pronto, who is one of the 100 that interviewed with us for the Shape the CDB. So she's part of our Disability Without Poverty Action Group, and boy, is she an active advocate.
I am so excited to talk to her because there have been a lot of things that have happened in that lady's life. So on to next time, everybody. Thanks so much.
If you would like to make comments or suggestions,
But only nice ones, of course.
please reach out to us at hello@disabilitywithoutpoverty.ca. If you want to talk to either Michelle or Amanda specifically, it's just our individual names, Amanda at disabilitywithoutpoverty.ca or Michelle at disabilitywithoutpoverty.ca.
And to find more about what this whole disability without poverty shebang is about, our website is disabilitywithoutpoverty.ca.
And I dance, I dance, I dance, dancing with the flames.
Disability with Possibility is made possible by many, many people. However, a few key people that we would like to thank are Christina Sheldon for her fabulous theme song, producer Dave Shumka with Kelly and Kelly, and all the funders and partners who help us do what we do.